Hello, everybody, and welcome to Chatting Shit. I'm afraid Brewer can't be with us today. He's too busy fighting Moose, trying to get their hands on his new poutine recipe. But instead, I have three lovely people joined with me. My name is Callum, otherwise known as Rigel Starlight. Been in a couple of videos recently with him. And we have the lovely Jan Solo,
Hello, hello. Good to be back.
the lovely Mystic Gas, and the lovely Hawkeye.
Bonjour.
So, we've got yet another Chatting Shit episode of Naiad. At the point of recording, we are going after Dan's episode. However, we haven't actually seen the footage, so apologies in advance if we accidentally cover anything they've already mentioned. We don't know what they might have said, so yeah, just pre-warning in advance. So, once we get on to the episode, Jan, how are you feeling about Naiad? Have you enjoyed Ember? Have you not? What are your current thoughts at the minute?
For the viewers at home, I've been kind of technically slightly semi-retired from Sylph, so I've avoided Ember, and I feel like that was the right decision in a number of ways. I'm sure as other members of the panel will have that say on Ember, but I'm just going to leave it at that. But no, my whole philosophy this season was to kind of pick and choose if I wanted to come back if something looked fun, and here I am. So I think Naiad has a lot of potential, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what people come up with. But yeah, first thoughts, I'm quite excited by the variety that I think is on offer here.
Definitely. So, Drew, let's hear your thoughts on Ember slash Naiad. Are you looking forward to this month? Anything you like?
Yeah, I think it's this wave is very much two contrasts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ember may go down as the most narrow meta ever. Now, there are reasons why that happened. We know there was moveset changes and things like that, which Sylph have no control over. Fair enough. I also like Jan, I didn't play it. As some people might know, I play for Team England in Gym Breakers. And I had the unfortunate meeting with Panic and Polymers up. And yeah, I bailed from Gym Breakers for the rest of the
Two,
month.
two very talented players.
Yeah, it just wasn't fun for me. And I said, to you guys, I've said it, in Discord groups, Facebook groups, I'm not playing for rank this season. I'm going the Yan way. I'm going to be very picky and just pick metas that I think kind of spark joy. And this is going to be Naiad is going to be very much one of them. I made a very bold prediction that I think it could go down as one of the best Sylph Cups ever. Uh,
Interesting.
but yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's got some of my personal favorite PvP mons eligible. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
And Alex, looking forward to this month? Not going to play? What are you thinking?
I think it's one of those things. I've been in and out of individual Sylph tournaments for a bit. I played one Cup of Ember, but also did a fair bit of practice with you guys for factions. I found that it was, yeah, very samey, very difficult to spark joy if all you were seeing was the same Gligar, Charizard, Poliwrath. Although, brave birding a Persuasion Quillfish will remain to be the absolute highlight of my life. So some good moments, but some moments that do make me feel like maybe that's not what I wanted to be doing. Naiad looks a little bit more like the kind of meta that I can sink my teeth into. Some spikes picks, some things that I think have the potential to go really, really well. Some picks that, are going to be, I think, everywhere. Like,
Of course.
top Flappy Dragon, I reckon, is going to be everywhere. We love it. We've loved it since Hoenn when it quite easily swept teams after a couple of Dragon Dances and then earthquaked its way through you. But it's one of those ones, and the fact that Mew is again very well positioned is always a good meta. I think when Mew is good because it's that kind of Swiss Army knife aspect that then everything can run through the same kind of feel. But not having dark types is a bold choice, but it keeps the likes of Umbreon and Mandibuzz out of a meta, which could have turned it into a much bulkier meta and one that we wouldn't really want to play.
Yeah. So moving on to the picks, speaking of sort of certain ones that have been removed, I can actually preface this by saying that Jan, your pick that you're about to delve into, was actually in contention to be on the ban list. So it was sort of teetering on the edge there. So if you'd like to start us off with your pick.
Always one for controversy, apparently. Let's kick things off, shall we? I've got my first time back for this season. So, I've decided that having gone through the initial meta, I felt like there would be something that would just spark immense joy. So, and is I think the second time that I've been on chatting shit to promote the use of a mythical. So I've gone with Pokedex number 649, the Paleozoic Pokemon Genesect. Now, I think everyone's kind of, if you're into PvP in any way, shape, or form, I think probably most people who are serious silphers or PvPers from perhaps, the last 18 months or so probably picked one of these up in the 2 limited events that we had where you could get a Great League eligible Genesect. Unfortunately, that presents an accessibility issue for anyone who started after that. But here we are. But I think the thing that kind of that really brought it to my eyes is like I always like a bit of an unusual pick. I think a lot of people write off Genesect in most formats because it is made of paper, even steel, which is a fantastic typing actually. Though when we consider all the resistances get and we consider some of the big threats in this meta or potential big threats. Like steel typing is always amazing, even when when you basically have no defense, it really, really helps bulk you out a little bit. But the thing when we were talking about Ember being the kind of like creating a rather kind of narrow meta off of move changes, one of the things that's kind of like slid under the radar for I think a lot of people was the fact that actually when a lot of the updates came in, shortly just before that our Great League Genesect actually got access to Technoblast Normal, which is a crazy move. Like, okay, normal typing, right? There's ghosts that are around or with the big jelly. We potentially have to worry about. I think a lot of people we're going to run that this month. It's just bulky. It has, Bubble Beam, which always pisses people off. Demonetize me if you dare, YouTube. But
the episode's called Chatting Shit. It should be fine.
Who makes this anyway? But like basically, if you're not, there's other steals you may need to worry about, like Sizzle, for example. And then Big Jelly. But there's a lot in the meta which doesn't really resist normal either. And it's not effective. But if you look at the stats of Technoblast is kind of busted as a move, and particularly when you pair it with Fury Cutter. Fury Cutter Technoblast is just kind of insane as a move set, and then you combine that with X's. I'm just going to say it right now: do not run Magnet Bomb. You gain very little from running Magnet Bomb. You just want to run Bug normal, basically. But I think this is one of the things that really kind of piqued my interest is that I finally got access to this move, which is very much unlike a lot of any other move that we've seen before. And you pair it with a Pokemon like Genesect, which can really dish out a lot of damage very, very quickly, like frighteningly quickly, I think is the thing here. I think if you're not used to using Genesect in something like Master League, where Frost Drive, for example, or even more like Dow's Drive has been quite handy. If you're not used to it, I think you're going to catch people out because catting Fury Cutters is nearly impossible anyway. But if you're just not really familiar with how much Technoblast is, or indeed how much it's going to do to you, you could be in a lot of trouble here. So I could go through a lot of the interesting matchups, but I kind of wanted to take a much more kind of general approach with this because I think it's actually I have a tendency to not pick Pokemon which are pick up and play necessarily. It's not kind of like what you say like you can just throw this into your team and you kind of tap away, Drew, and get on with it kind of thing. So there is some finesse to it, right? It's not like one of these things where you can just walk into a match and just continually throw Technoblast. It's not that type of Pokemon. You have to realize that going into it. But if you become adept at it and you kind of learn its ins and outs and when to throw X's, when to throw Technoblasts, it's got an incredible ceiling ahead of it. Like so in even shields, in the ones, it's kind of fairly even across the broad meta as PV puts it. So it's kind of like a 50-50 kind of blast. There's some quite interesting kind of like potentially flippable matchups with a couple of Fury Cutters, which is very easy to get because of the way Fury Cutter works. I will say that even the Technoblast is an amazing move in terms of like a closing nuke. It's not really a closer in the type of meta that we have here. It's zero shields is really not great. You want it to have shields, and I mean that's kind of understandable given its defenses. But when I was saying about that kind of that ceiling ahead of you, its twos matchups look kind of crazy. Like, and again, some of this is kind of mitigated by the fact that you're going to have to be throwing exabates and stuff like that. But if you master that, your twos matchups are looking pretty solid, and I think this is a meta where you can build around kind of having like a two shielded kind of monster, and then there is some bulk around which could kind of play zeros. One thing that I know that was potentially going to be picked for today, but has not. But there is bulk to be had, and you can kind of create these zero shield situations, which you can play around as a strategy, I think. So yeah, for example, just if you just again, we have to kind of take some of this with a bit of finessing and things like that. But I think it's to kind of illustrate some of the point here. Like in the twos, if you want to go down that type of shit of the road, you've got like a 25-13 win-loss ratio, and some of those losses are things like Swampert, which is like a 485, which probably with a couple of Fury Cutters is probably going to throw that off. Things like your big flyers, you're never going to really beat. Like Mantine is going to be a big nuisance. You're getting really close against things like Lapras, which is just super bulky, right? So even the bulkiest things are still kind of having to worry about Technoblast. But I think the thing that really shines here for me is that another strategy that I was thinking of is giving this thing a shield advantage.
Yeah.
If this thing gets a shield advantage, it is terrifying. And again, it's not kind of a plug in and play like, oh, you get a shield advantage, you automatically win. But like, just take for this example, if you get him to 1-0s, right, for an example.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to get to this one.
1-0s.
Yeah.
Meta for the kind of doing the simulations of the is 38 Pokemon, like kind of the core meta really. In the 1-0s, your win-loss ratio is 36-2.
And yeah, I'm just quickly, what's the worst of those two? What's the absolute worst?
Jellicent.
and what's the other one? And what's the score on that one?
It's Poliwrath and it's 485.
So that seems flippable, doesn't it? Doesn't it, Jan?
Yeah.
Insane.
That's nuts. That is.
And that's 1-0s. You can go to 2-1s as well, like, and have a very similar story. 35-3. And again, the ones that you lose is Mantine this time, because they can just bubble beam through, so you don't
make sense. Yeah.
Jellicent, Ghost, obviously. And then the other one, which actually you pick up Poliwrath in the 2-1s, but you actually drop Empoleon. Empoleon being a steel makes sense. That's still 463 as a steel type, right? So I think this looks incredible fun. It's going to take a lot of getting used to, but you can orchestrate a couple of strategies there. The evens are not too bad, as long as you're not in zeros. It's always going to need a shield of some sort. I think that's the take-home message. But you can create some very interesting strategies around creating either a shield advantage for yourself, in which case run for the hills if you're facing it, because it's going to cause a lot of damage. Or you can actually kind of play out those twos kind of situation and actually have a really good time as well, because it seems to be a fantastic twos mon that you can use. But again, I will preface this, like, a lot of my choices are never kind of like throw it in and just tap away. You're going to need to learn how to use it, because again, it's all about that timing. It's like, when am I going to want to throw the X's, and when am I going to want to just go in on the Technoblast? And it might be something that kind of evolves through the month as well, as people become more wary of what it does, because I assume I'm going to guess there's going to be some people who are going to wield it very, very effectively. And, when you start seeing high-level players using these things, people start to learn the counts and stuff like that, and they understand a bit more. So, and then the strategy is going to evolve again. And I actually really love Pokemon like that, which kind of like their utility evolves through a meta. It's not just like you have it at the start of the meta and it's still doing the same thing by the end of the month. I really kind of enjoy these things where you can shift the way that it works. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting pick. Again, not everyone's going to have access to it, which is a real shame. And obviously you can't trade them either. But I think if you've got it, and you're willing to put a bit of time into it, I think it can be a real fun thing to use here. And why not run it for a tournament or something, right? I'm just, it sparks joy. So that's my pitch for Genesect. It looks cool. Wish I had the shiny at Great League level, but unfortunately, I did not have the luck there when I saved my encounter. But some people do, and I hate them. But anyway.
Oh dear. Yeah, I certainly think it's the Pokemon with the highest performance ceiling within this meta, as you've
absolutely
very eloquently described. And this is part of the reason why it was potentially uncontested for the banks. But it is quite difficult to use, as you've said. There are responses to it. Jellicent looks very popular, despite the fact there are some normals specifically helicoptered in to help deal with it because it's so powerful. So that's something you've always got to be on your toes for. Empoleon, I know it's a soft loss because Empoleon is quite squishy, but again, that's something that you can easily just shield once and say Waterfall down on the completely resisted moveset with Genesect. It's the fact that there's quite a lot of, well, maybe not quite a lot, but there's a fair number of opposing bug steals that put up a good fight versus Genesect as well. Say, I don't think you'll see it as much, but I have seen some small usage of Escavalier in certain metas. I'm pretty sure Scizor just completely out damages it. Yeah, Wormadam.
Wormy
Yeah, Wormy, especially with that additional bulk, really sort of helps out. It might not be that bad of a matchup.
It's quite close. You do win it in the 1-0s. But it's the third match it's the third match. So like you lose to Jellicent, you lose to Poliwrath, and then you beat Wormadam, but it's a 5-15. So just in the same way that it's flippable one way, it is actually flippable the other way. Yeah. And that'll be more influenced by IVs because somebody could have a good Wormadam trash, whereas you kind of have the Genesect you got. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And if you mess up that bait, you're screwed. Whereas with Wormadam, you can just sort of throw when you get it.
Yeah. What I will say though is, so Genesect has one weakness, like one weakness from types, and that is fire. It has just a ton of resistances, a ton of them. But when you consider there's not actually any fire damage.
There is exactly Victini's V-Create.
Victini's
Fire Punch, and then there's Delphox, which no one's going to use.
Well, you've got Mew Flame Charge as well.
Yeah, Flame Charge.
That's true.
Flame Charge Mew is not going to cut it though, because the Fury Cuts is going to go straight through it, and the X's is going to go straight through it. And then you also, if you're running Flame Charge on Mew, you're not running Dragon Claw, which means the Altaria matchup's worse. So like, it's one of those ones. It's so well defensively typed here.
Yeah.
You can kind of forget. Oh, actually, I just found another piece of fire damage. You'd never do this, but you can run Flamethrower, Comet-O.
Oh, I'm in.
Fire Blaster. Fire Blaster.
I got Jan. You son of a bitch! I'm in.
There we go. Spicy movesets right there.
Yeah. Brewer's gonna insist that I never come on these again, isn't he?
He did tell me to make sure I keep it as short as I can because all of these run over. But I mean, Genesect is worth talking about in my opinion because
Genesect I think is so good. It's got a massive potential. The typing makes it really, really good. So even though it is made out of paper, the fact that it's got that bug steel typing and the fact that there's no fire fast moves in the meta, it really does make a big difference. It means that it's not as squishy as it could have been. If you had a single Fire Fang user or something like that, you'd be like, nope, I'm out.
And that's it. It's like one of those classic things. Like there's a lot of bug steals in other metas, which, but if you actually look at the stats, aren't really actually bulky, but they always feel way bulkier because it's resisting everything all the time. Yeah. So
exactly.
And it's not like we're saying it's going to turn Genesect into a Wormy Tea or anything like that, but it's going to feel a lot better than it would otherwise.
Yeah.
And when you've got, and again, you combine that where you're living just a little bit longer because most of the moves that you're going to encounter in the meta, you're going to be resisting. So you're just living a little bit longer, which means you're getting those extra few Fury Cutters off, which means you're just probably going to get to that Technoblast when your opponent doesn't want you to. And if you get that Hail Mary TB in, well, so good. But yeah, it's the thing, and I can understand why it would be up on the chopping board, because there is a lot out there which can deal with it, but there's also a lot out there which cannot deal with it if you're not prepared. And I think it will catch a lot of people off guard. But again, I think that's why I like it, is because the ceiling is so high, but it requires work. It's not.
Exactly.
And I think that's also a really important thing to consider when it comes to the balancing issue. Is like, yes, this is a very good Pokemon. I think there'll be very few people who disagree, but it is the fact that if you want to get the most out of it, you're going to have to put the time into it, which some players just don't want to do, and that's fair enough. But that I think that's just an important thing, because if people come around and say, "Oh, it's just so good, it's so good," it's like, yeah, but it's so good because you have to learn how to use it. To get the full potential out of it. And I think that's something to bear in mind, potentially somewhere down the road when someone starts complaining about something, possibly.
Yeah. I hate to cut you off here, but I think this is probably about time to move on to the next big. So are there any final quick closing remarks about Genesect before we move on? Or
It's sick, bro.
It's a fun mon, but like Jan alluded to, you need to be skilled with it and have experience with it. Now, this recording is going to go out after the meta goes live for the month. There aren't going to be many practice tournaments knocking around, so are players willing to potentially sacrifice a small 3-4 rounder just to get some experience with it before?
Probably not. Probably
exactly. Not. So yeah, but no, do you know what? I don't care about rank. I might do a Yan and run Genesect at some point.
Well, moving on to that.
There it is.
Oh, lovely.
Already have it built.
Moving on, I believe you're next, Drew. So what are you wanting to talk about today?
I'm going to talk about a Pokemon that begins with the letter G. It's just not Galvantula this time. So I'm going to talk about Pokedex number 820, the greedy Pokemon, which is Greedent. Greedent last season became a bit of a personal favorite of mine. There were a couple of metas where Greedent was in an absolutely insane safe swap. Not so much here.
No.
There are going to be a few SCAVs knocking around, but as I found out in a practice tournament, I don't think SCAV is its main threat per se. I think it's actually Buzzwole.
Yeah.
If you can, everything's resisted. So yeah, it's not a good time for poor old Greedent. A few stats. So we've actually done the win rates based on Bullet Seed and Tackle. Because I think, again,
makes sense.
I think both are viable. I know what I'm running this month.
Yeah.
But I think there will be people that run Tackle. So with Bullet Seed, in the zeros, this is an all even shields again against what PvP classes as the meta. Bullet Seed in the zeros is 47% win rate. Nothing special. Tackle, you go all the way up to 60% in the zeros. The ones you've got a 55% win rate with Bullet Seed. In Tackle, it's 65.
Interesting.
The twos, you got Bullet Seed at 57% and Tackle at 65 again. So ones and twos with Tackle are exactly the same. So if you look at the numbers, 47, 55, 57 on Bullet Seed, you've got a 10% swing, Tackle 60, 65, 65. You would probably go for the fact that Tackle is probably the more consistent move to potentially run. However, I think Bullet Seed is the way to go. I really do. Haven't seen too many yet, but I know Brewer, he shouted at me instantly because I had a practice battle with him and I ran Quagsire. This was before the official rankings came out. And it did a job. And Mud Boys are potentially scary. You've got to remember, Swampert is around. And it will, apart from the obvious things, again, like Altaria, it will do damage to a lot of mons that are, viable. I also did some some sims like Jan did with shield advantage. So unfortunately, Jan went first, so mine are going to be underwhelming now. So in the 1-0 shield, you get an 89% win rate. Your only losses are Escav, Momo, that stupid dragon, Big Wormy T, and Buzzwole, as I mentioned, is a pain in the ass, and I hate it already. In the 2-1 shield scenario, it actually goes up to 92%. And you randomly lose to something very random, which is you're not going to see in this meta, and that is Beedrill. If someone runs Beedrill in this meta, they have got the biggest cojones going.
It's sort of in a similar position to Architect, except just slightly worse, because Architect had a lot of, say, Helipper, which was really strong against it, which is quite prevalent here. We've now got, say, Mantine. We've now got Jellicent here. We've got Altaria. Yeah. So it's just it's sort of in a similar position in Architect, where this meta is sort of like a blend of both Architect and Glacial, and it's sort of fallen from its Glacial grace here with all the new additions that we've got in this sort of rework.
I picked up Glacial vibes straight away as soon as I started playing it. It was very familiar. But the other two losses, in the 2-1s, again, was Buzzwole and again Como. So you do actually flip the Wormy T in the 2-1s, which is quite nice. Wormy T was in my first draft. It has since been dropped. Yeah, I won't give away the secrets why. The Greedent Mirror, seeing we're talking about Bullet Seed and Tackle, is there a chance that you could get a mirror matchup, one Bullet Seed user, one Tackle user? So some interesting information. Tackle wins the 0s in the mirror. Bullet Seed wins the 1s, and Tackle wins the 2s.
Okay.
So yeah, I was expecting Bullet Seed to maybe pick up the 0s, but who knows? I guess the tackle damage is just too much chip.
So you're getting through Tackle's 1-turn move, isn't it now? Yeah, so
yeah, of course, yeah.
It's Water Gun clone, and then you're getting Stab as well. So you're getting, for every 1 Bullet Seed, you're getting 3 tackles in, right? So that's I'm just running the quick sims now. So every Bullet Seed's 4 damage, and every tackle is 3. So you're doing 12 damage to 4 damage. So you're doing 3 times the amount of damage, yeah. So it's kind of like it just
you need to be generating energy 3 times faster to even break even.
Yeah,
it's kind of a bit mad. And then also in the just to kind of like sorry, because I really like Greedent here as well, but I'm kind of being my dickish. So I was like, the Greedent ones, Bullet Seed versus Tackle, can be flipped with 1 turn. So it's kind of and that again, the Tackle with 1-turn moves, we know how easy that is to do, right? So just on the switch, right? So that's just something to be wary of. So I was wondering, like whether it would be a case of how close that matchup was, because it's like something, if you wanted to try and be a bit degen, and if you got a bit ahead, you maybe want to throw a crunch to get a debuff and then go in. Could you flip it that way? Which is obviously not a great strategy, but
that was my strategy for every time I used Greedent.
I mean, to be fair, it's my strategy for using Greedent as well, but yeah.
Because when it works brilliantly, and the crunch debuff rate isn't that bad.
Crunch is one of the best moves in the game.
It's so good. Since the debuff, it's absolutely amazing. Like, considering how mediocre it was before, I was like, oh, I've got to use crunch. Now I want to use crunch. Like,
I'd rather use crunch than like foul play or dark pulse or anything like that, just because it's just better. Yeah,
absolutely.
But no, Greedent again. Jan mentioned it quite a lot with his pick, Jelly. Potentially being very big.
And the crunch makes a big difference to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, the Bullet Seed will as well. It's a very big reason why I'm going for the Bullet Seed route.
Out of curiosity,
yep.
Why Greedent? Why not Snorlax?
Because Greedent can debuff, Snorlax can debuff itself.
Yeah, but very few things like taking a superpower, don't they? Like,
yeah,
just a superpower dip is a traditional thing, but yeah.
No, I think Greedent every day of the week. I think Snorlax here. I think you would probably go Greedent, Miltank, Snorlax if we're talking normal types.
Okay.
I believe this was covered in a previous episode. I believe it was Dan who mentioned that if he was to go double normal, he'd go, say, Miltank and pair it with the Snorlax. Although you're obviously leaning more towards Greedent, and I think currently in usage, Greedent is ahead. But I mean, I've only looked at a few practice tournaments, to be
Of
fair.
course, because
I
aside from counter users, which there's very few and far between counter users available in this meta. Buzzwole, Escav, obviously Como and Hako learn Brick Break and Close Combat, so they can be a bit of a nightmare. And Altaria is a bit of a key loss for Reedon. But other than that, PB Poke has again Beedrill, has Dragonair, and it has Pelipper.
Pelipper is definitely flippable, as is, I know for a fact, Beedrill. But
Yeah.
I think the point I was going to make was that I definitely agree that Snorlax is sort of I think you double up on a second normal that you have as a coverage for opposing normals. Say, if you're going Greedent and you want a second normal, I think go Snorlax so that you're not necessarily too weak to, say, ones that would typically be completely fine swapping in on a normal. But Altaria is an interesting one where, despite how much ice there is, it feels really good against almost all of the safe swaps. So
I mean,
in a
you
sense,
could just go Miltank and run Ice Beam and Thunderbolt on it.
this is something we talked about in the Miltank episode as well.
Might I also
Anyway.
use Outrage Snorlax?
I was
Yes.
thinking that. Oh my god, I was thinking that. I was on that. Yeah.
I'm just basic bitch. You know what I mean? Greedent. Just go for the basic bitch, mon.
So to not ask for any explanation, just a one-word answer. Jan, what's your favourite normal out of the three?
What out of
Snorlax, Miltank, Greedent?
Oh, it's got to be Tank, like 100%.
Yeah, Drew. Is yours the fat squirrel?
Of course, it's a beast.
And Alex?
Snorlax. 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 Come on.
We're split three ways. Well,
yeah.
I think personally, I don't have one yet, which I'm looking to build, but I really want to try Miltank. I think. But I think probably Greedent will be what I end up using more. But yeah, I really want to test out Miltank.
Greedent is the safe option of the normals, should we say?
I would contest that actually the normals are all fairly safe anyway, and that my point is that what I like about Green, but I think this probably speaks to quite a lot of the normals really, is that they do feel very much kind of like Swiss Army knife in this meta once again, in terms of, I remember me and Drew were talking about this beforehand in that Greedent. The thing that I like about Greedent here, for example, like quite specific, is that yeah, you've got the tackle, you've got Bullet Seed, and that slot right for a bulky normal is very much built around, do I want a really bulky normal generalist who's going to hit most of the meta pretty hard and pretty quick, or do I want a jelly answer? Which and the Bullet Seed still does really good against the general meta, but like, you know, I think if you build Bullet Seed, you're very much saying like I just want to get jelly off the table, right? And you can do that. And same with, you can do that with Snorlax, right? Because Snorlax is obviously very much more oppressive with the licks. So that's very much more a jelly counter in that sense. You can do similar things with Miltank as well. Like, you know, you just build the set around what you want it to do. So yeah, maybe you're bothered about Altaria, so you run the Ice Beam with Body Slam, and you've got Rollout if you want to do energy generation, but there's tackle as well. So I think that's kind of more, I think a broader comment on the normals in this meta is that they are like, I think that you can tailor them a lot to the build. So I think, and that's why I don't think there's necessarily a correct move set per se for any of them, because they will all do a job that you want them to do.
Exactly.
So you never, I don't think, as long as you appreciate that, you're never going to be left wanting. And I think, yeah, things like double normal allow you to kind of be a lot more kind of flexible in that sense.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, Drew, what would you pair Greedent with? Like, if we're looking at, you've picked Greedent and you wanted to fill a specific role, what bodyguards it?
Oh, Cal, you know the answer to this already, didn't you?
Go on, enlighten the masses.
It's my GG's team, Galvin Greedent. Weak as piss to Altaria, but I don't care.
And if you close your eyes, Altaria isn't real. That's all I'm saying.
No, of course. Like I'm relatively experienced now playing different forms of PvP. Of course, I'm bringing coverage for Altaria.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you'd be silly not to. Otherwise, it will rip teams apart.
But no, it is interesting because Galvantula is still quite strong. I mean, obviously, I went in a previous episode for the Charger Bug pick. I still think it's got a slight edge, but the new Shadow Galvantula, that looks quite interesting. But
yeah, well, if a bloody rocket stopped,
we don't talk about Shadow Galvantula.
No,
we
does not exist.
we don't talk about Shadow Galvantula. No.
Are there any closing remarks on Greedent before we move on? I think it's just a great one, obviously.
Yeah,
yep.
I like it.
I think that's just for consensus, isn't it? It's just good mod.
It's sound Pokemon. Like it's going to do its job. It's going to turn up. It's going to do something. It's not going to be the Pokemon that you sit there and you're like, yeah, it's absolutely amazing. It's the best thing since sliced bread. But it is the thing that's going to turn up and just be the backbone of your team. You know what I mean? Like unsung hero. I think Greedent's got that option.
Yeah.
In the way that Genesect is this sort of flashy show off.
Exactly.
It's the complete opposite.
Greedent is the complete opposite of it. It's there, it's consistent, it will do its thing.
This is what I would say. Like, whereas my pick is very much kind of thing like, if I'm going to use this, I really need to think about how I'm using it. Whereas if you could get to 5 of your 6 picks and be like, what could I plug in here? And Greedent just slots right in no matter what.
Yeah.
Right? So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that people who play Greedent don't need too much skill to use Greedent?
We're suggesting that Greedent's just so good you don't need to think about it.
If you believe that is what is being said, then that's more of a comment on you.
Very true. Very, very true.
It's the complete opposite of Genesect, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like you said, flashy, need to learn it, how to play it. Greedent, you can tap your way through.
Well, and I think that speaks volumes to the people we've got on our call today.
I mean, it's not Charm, okay?
Yeah, it's not. Right.
Or my XL Shadow Weeping Bell.
Which we are looking forward to seeing. Yes. Moving on, then. It's actually my pick next. And I've gone for quite a boring pick in a sort of similar fashion. My pick is number 150, the Tender Pokemon, Milotic. And I call it boring because it doesn't actually really have much of an impressive win rate. And it's quite a slow, sort of fast move, pressure heavy mon. I think it looks interesting in this meta, in the fact that you've got Dragon Tail, and then you're obviously the nice defensive water typing. So you have a generally okay matchup into Altaria, although you're quite slow to your charge moves, which Surf, being the one you're 99% of the time going to throw, isn't very effective back. So you definitely have lose cons against it, but it's a nice sort of blanket bench pressure check against, say, an Altaria safe swap. And it has very, very close losses. I think it only boasts roughly a 30% win rate in the evens, roughly across both meta, across the sort of condensed meta picks. However, a considerable number of all of them in the zeros, the ones and the twos are all in the sort of 400 range. A lot of the wins are in the sort of low 500 range. And it's very much a mon which benefits from the types of teams that prefer energy advantage to switch. I mean, with Altaria, you've got, say, lots of ice types. So that's something you preferably want to switch for. For the normals, you don't typically need it, but say if there's a Buzzwole on the enemy team, it might be something you fight for quite a lot. Let's see, with something like a Swampert, which I haven't seen much usage of, but something like a Swampert, you wouldn't want to give up switch if you knew there was a Mantine on the enemy team. But for teams where it's just generally a bit safer, you're more reliant on your fast move pressure, I think it's very good for building around as another really high quality safe swap, because it's got a great defensive profile, as we mentioned. It's got good fast move damage. And although it's slow, Surf is a great move. PV Poke recommends Blizzard. I'm personally leaning more towards Hyper Beam because I think it gives you a lot more consistent closing power against things like Wall Rain, which it has a mostly positive matchup against. It gives you much higher closing power, even against the steals, because I mean steals are going to resist both moves anyway. It's slightly better into Empoleon, And although I'd be throwing Surf in that matchup anyway. And yeah, I don't exactly have particularly much to say about it. I just think it looks solid, it looks good, it looks
I think
serviceable.
I think the thing for me is that it beats Jellicent.
Yeah. Which is interesting because you wouldn't quite expect that.
It's the fact that it narrowly beats Jellicent, but narrowly loses to Altaria, in spite of the fact that you'd actually think that to be the other way around.
Yeah.
But it has sort of win and lose cons in both scenarios, so you can force it through what you need.
Milotic into Jellicent is just straight Dragon Tail on Surf, isn't it? I think you need to watch out for the baits. You don't really want to be shielding a Bubble Beam. You kind of want to be shielding a Shadow Ball, but PV Poke tends to have you shielding the Bubble Beam. Sorry, just quickly, Cal, what Pokedex number did you say that was?
It is 350.
Right, okay.
I also had the same confusion. I thought you said
good. Good. I'm glad, because I was like 150. That's not the right one.
If I accidentally said 150, the viewers below, I am very viewers at home, I am very sorry. 350.
Cool, that's fine. We'll come back to that in a moment. But it's got some interesting matchups. I think anywhere a lot of the dragons are going to feel pressured by that Dragon Tail, especially sort of the squishier dragons, so to speak. So there's a lot of like hard hitting Dragon Breath fast move pressure in this meta. They're looking at the rankings, it's ranked 65th in PV Poke rankings. Do you know what 64th? It's a Shadow Latios. I can guarantee that it's going to handle that Shadow Latios because the Dragon Tails are really going to chunk through it. But even things like Dragonair, it's got a decent matchup against that because it's just squishier. Altaria obviously is a lot bulkier than Dragonair or Dragonite or Shadow Latios. And that's where the flip in it comes. But anybody who's bringing those kind of dragons away from Altaria is going to be thinking, hang on, I need to play around this, which means that you're not then able to use it as the safe swap that they would normally try and use it as. Just get shut down and walled by the Milotic. And I'm sure we've all played faction matches recently where we've had a Milotic and we've gone, hang on, or a Milotic on the other side, and you go, actually, I kind of need to play around that. I don't want to get myself caught in that. And it flips matchups a lot easier than you'd think.
Part of what sold it to me was that it has quite a consistent Sizzle matchup as well, without access to any fire moves. So it consistently wins the 0s and 1s against your typical Shadow Knight / Ironhead. I mean, you could run X-Scissor.
That's because PV Poke doesn't have the boost element that Scissor is probably going to hit every
obviously, but
it does. It randomly thingies it. So when you go in and set it up, sometimes you'll see that one of the matchups is like really, really out of it because it's randomly triggered a boost on one of those matchups.
That's true, but
you can get to explore the full range of win and lose ones as well, so you can actually see them all like laid out, so you can actually
But no, it's quite comfortable in the 0s and 1s, which if you're able to get that shield off the Sizzle to then come in with something else, that's quite nice. And I think Sizzle, arguably to me, is one of the easiest Pokemon to bring, just because it's got that boost element. It's got
just because you're a bug player.
I mean, yeah, there's that, but I am the world's leading authority on bug types. That is true.
Mr. Level 51 Kakuna.
Mr. Level 51 Kakuna. that is what I'm known for. But yeah.
So what I'd say is that it's a nice bulky Pokemon, and actually you could use that with something like Genesect, and something like Greedent, where you've got like these Pokemon playing like a third shield. And you can sort of generate your shield advantage from that point, and then you're looking at the 32 Pokemon that Genesect beats in the 1-0s. Especially because Jellicent would obviously then be handled by the Milotic and the Greedent with Bullet Seed, wouldn't it? So it's very much going to play in a sort of a well-balanced team like that, where you sort of lead with your Genesect, you get a couple of Fury Cutters, you switch into the Milotic and sort of handle it that way. If you don't catch the Jellicent in the lead, that would work out quite well, you'd think.
Are we building Yana team here or something?
Yeah.
Or... Oh, okay.
100%. We're not just building Yana team, we're building Mia team, because I'm going to have a lot of fun. I've got 5 of my Pokemon already. 4 of which have been spoken about tonight.
I've got some
Nice.
I've got some secrets.
One of which
as well, so.
one of which is the one that I was going to talk about as well. So there you go. That's 5.
Interesting. But yeah, I think it's just nice and round, nice and solid.
It's a solid pick. I like it. It's got a lot of consistency behind it, and I think even with the baits.
Jan, Drew, any remarks on Milotic? Any previous experience? Anything?
Fantastic shiny. Let's get that out there, right? If you got
it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's just one of those solid. It's a solid Sylph pick, really. To be honest, it's like one of those ones that it comes up in a lot of metas, and you know what it's going to give you. And it never dominates. It's never really dominated a meta before. I don't think it ever will. It's just the moveset's not there for it. But the point is that all the metas that it's been in the last, year or so or a bit, like every time it's come up, it's just done exactly the same thing. So, which isn't by no means a bad thing, right? It's like, it's like it's a safety blanket in a way.
Yeah.
I was going to make a joke about that, but like it is. It's like, if I needed something to do a particular job, then most Sylph players know what Melodic does. I think it's definitely seen a bit of a resurgence recently with like bulky options, Dragon Tail buff in the last year or so, whenever it got done. Who doesn't love a beam meme? Like, come on,
yeah.
That's true. So yeah, I think it's a great pick. It's just a really great anchor, I think, in a lot of places, which you can really build around. And for those who, again, it's one of those things, I think, for newer players who may be a bit inexperienced with it, we've not had many opportunities to get good IVV feedbass and things like that recently, but it's one of those things like we all know what it does, and again, it will catch people out, and like Alex says, it's like sometimes you might have a team built to actually, I haven't really considered this, I don't want anything to be really locked into here, right? Like, just because it will create some sort of advantage, because you don't really need to shield it very much, so you can generate a shield advantage. There's always the looming threat of a nuke of some sort, both Blizzard and Hyper Beam. Either way you go, are gonna hurt, like regardless, unless you're Jelly, but then you're just gonna smack anyway. So yeah, great pick. I really like it, and I think it's another one of those ones that you can just like be like, yeah, this is what I need something to do, and it would just slot in very nicely.
Nice. Drew?
Solid but unspectacular is what I'm going to go for.
Couldn't say it any better. I think that's the perfect way just to condense the last.
Title of your sex tape?
If I had it.
Sick burn, bro.
If I could have sex.
Give it 20 years.
I was talking about Drew.
Oh
God! We're just imagine throwing yourself under the bus there, Cal.
Oh dear.
Chucking red. Oh no, I'm not going there.
Stop. Emergency stop. Let's move on.
This is a Pokemon video, so we are a family-friendly channel.
No, we're not.
We are not a family-friendly channel. This video is called Chatting Shit.
I'm very sorry for the last 30 seconds, Brewer. Right.
Moving on then. Anything in my life.
Sorry, Matt.
I'm personally really interested in this next pick. I think it's quite bad, in all honesty, but I think it's got a good niche. And looking into it, the more I actually looked into it, the more sold I was. So, Alex, would you like to take away with your next pick?
Alan, I want to start with the fact that this pick is 3 higher than yours. Okay? Ranking-wise, this pick is 3 higher than yours. It is pick number 62 on the PvPoke rankings. It is Pokedex entry 150. It is the genetic Pokemon Mewtwo, and I'm specifically talking about its Shadow form because that's the only one we could get into Great League.
Yep.
If you didn't catch it in a weather boosted like I did the second time that I caught one. We'll ignore that because I do have one, so I am going to be playing with it. So, Mewtwo is running a standard moveset of Psycho Cut because Confusion is just not... It just turns it into a worse Hypno. It's like, oh yeah, we've got this really good Confusion move. It's like, great, yeah, sure, I could kill a Toxicroak in 4 hits if it was in the... 3 hits if it was in the meta. Although, actually, you can get it to 2, by the way. Brilliant when you do that. It's also running Psy Strike, which is a legacy move you would need to Elite TM to get to it. But PvPoke then recommends Thunderbolt. Now, the thing about Mewtwo is that it has just a enormous range of moves. A lot of the moves aren't going to decide whether or not you win a matchup. But if you just have a look at it, you've got Shadow Ball, which obviously will hit pretty much everything. You're going to miss the normals is the only thing you're going to miss. But pretty much everything else is going to be fine because there's no darks in the meta. You've then got Thunderbolt for the likes of Jellicent. You've got Ice Beam for the likes of Altaria. You've got Flamethrower for the likes of Genesect and Wormadam and Caesar, although Caesar you don't win even if you have Flamethrower. You have Psychic, but I don't recommend that. Side Strike is just going to be a better move. You have Focus Blast for the normal types. You have Hyper Beam, which again I do not recommend. And you do technically have Frustration. I'm gonna just go out on a limb and say don't use Frustration. If you take one thing away from tonight, don't use Frustration on a Shadow Mewtwo. It's not going to do the amount of damage that you want it to do. Now, is this Pokemon the bulkiest of Pokemon? No. So if we were to put this into a bulky kind of Pokemon sense, we've had Greedent and we've had Milotic, and they're very, very bulky Pokemon. And we had Genesect, which Jan has decided is about as bulky as a piece of paper. Now, Mewtwo and Shadow Mewtwo in particular makes Genesect look like Greedent and Milotic by comparison. So that sort of gives you an idea that if you get locked in against something that's doing a lot of fast move pressure, you are going to get boned. It is going to feel like you have just been in prison. But I'm sorry, Matt. I'm so sorry, Matt. Carry on. But there is a lot of Pokemon in this meta that are relying on fast generating charge moves. And they're relying on these low damage fast moves. And these are the ones where Mewtwo is really going to shine. For example, Quagsire.
Yeah. I was actually going to bring this up
if
you didn't mention it.
Has no way of winning against Mewtwo because it's faster to the Side Strike and the Mudshots do no damage. It's great. Yeah.
And Quagsire is a great Pokemon, so to beat that is actually quite impressive.
I mean, Phil would be very unhappy if he found out how badly Quagsire was beaten up here. So, just a couple of things to have a look at. So, in the One Shield, it's not wonderful, I'll be honest. So we talked about 38 Pokemon in the Sylph meta that PvPoke ranks around. 12 of them are wins. 26 of them are losses. I will point out here, just by the way, Jan and Drew, before you laugh at me too much here, 3 of those losses are Mew. I will be really to be fair here, guys. If you see Mew on the other side, Mew will always beat Mewtwo because Shadow Claw is just going to do enough damage.
My question was, sorry to interrupt, how many Shadow Claws will it take to beat Shadow Mewtwo?
I'm going to say it is about 10. In fact, 3, 6, it is 9. I was dead close. Just interestingly enough, though, by the way, in the One Shields? In the One Shields, yeah, let me just double check. Yeah, in the One Shields, it's a 3-turn difference between winning and losing.
What, between Mew and Mewtwo?
According to PvPoke. Now, I don't believe that because I think Mew didn't actually shield for some reason. Don't ask me why. I think it should be throwing Thunderbolt and then just no shield. So it's actually, it's a little bit worse than that, but still. And that's assuming Dragon Claw. But yeah, 9 Shadow Claws is going to KO it and it's going to go. But that's always going to happen, so it's fine. But the good wins that it picks up are the likes of basically the bug types that you wouldn't expect it to pick up.
Yeah.
So you pick up Wormadam Trash. You pick up Escav.
That is confusion, though, isn't it? That is confusion.
Is that confusion? Hang on.
Has to be.
No, that's Psycho Cut.
No, confusion is in Wormadam.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, yes. PvPoke automatically put into confusion when I was searching through. I was like, hang on, did I go back to that? No, so yeah, confusion Wormadam, Escav, Galvantula you pick up, which is great. You actually pick up Mantine, you pick up Kingdra, you pick up Gyarados and Dragonair. You've got a very close matchup to Lugia, to Walrein, to Jellicent, which, by the way, yes, Jellicent goes straight Bubble Beam against you, but it's such, the Jellicent, if you're on a 1 shield each, The Jellicent can't switch in because you've reached that second side strike and it will KO. Nothing likes to take a side strike from a Shadow Mewtwo. Its attack stat, just to give you some random figures here, the attack stat is 148, right? Yeah. That is enormous. That is just massive. Its defense stats is 94, which, to put that into perspective, is about the same as Umbreon's attack. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So it's got that. It doesn't do too bad against the normals. So do you know what its one shield matchup is against Greedent? It's 440. So it loses to Greedent, sure. But that's a lot closer than you would expect that to be a lot firmer.
Yeah,
if Greedent lands a crunch.
Straight side strike, yeah. There's no like, yeah,
no reason to throw anything else.
There's no reason not to. That is, by the way, with a body slam bait into a crunch. I think if you go straight crunch, it's even closer. No, actually, well, yeah, it is actually. The crunch is slightly closer, but it's not. It doesn't like flip the numbers. It's got a good
slam as well. But that gets to like 9 HP, which is like
you want to be a bit careful with that. It's good against got a decent matchup against Miltank, against Snorlax. Again, Whiscash, because of the low fast move pressure that it's putting on, it's able to do something. And this is just on the 1-0s. If you then take it into the 1-1s, if you take it into the 1-0s, it wins 37. So we were talking about Yan with Genesect winning 36. 37 of them. The one you miss is Mew with Dragon Claw. And you beat Mew with Flame Charge. You beat Mew with Grass Knot.
Yeah.
It's Mew with Dragon Claw that you miss.
I find it quite interesting because I actually looked into this and expanded it to the entire Naiad meta. And it keeps that win rate against the entire Naiad meta, even with the influx of all the additional bug types coming in. It still keeps a roughly 97% win rate in the 1-0 shields, which is interesting because you can give it a shield advantage in the 2-1s, and it's still a high number, but it drops off considerably, which is due
it's 24 to 14.
Fault.
Yeah, it's 24 to 14, and the losses it picks up are some very obvious ones. So Empoleon is one of them. The 3 Mews. Now, again, bear in mind, you're only facing one of those Mews. So where you lose 14, you actually really only lose 12.
Yeah.
Because 2 of them are duplicates, so you're not seeing all of them on the same team. It loses Lugia, but it's very, very close. It loses Whiscash, but again, it's very close. Greedent, Snorlax, very, very close. Jellicent, it's flippable. It's one turn flippable kind of thing. It loses Dragalge, which you really don't want to lose to a poison type, but hey, it is what it is. And it does lose Kommo-o. Again, you don't want to lose to a fighting type, but it's to the dragon damage. It's just the fast move pressure on it. The thing about it is, though, where the fast moves aren't involved, where the fast moves aren't doing that amount of damage. So take the 2-1s. It's smashing Swampert. It's smashing Miltank. It's smashing Chargerbug. Mm-hmm. It's smashing Quagsire, Pelipper, Walrein, Celio, Mantine, Buzzwole, Wormy, Escab, Victini. Deoxys, Lapras, all of these things.
Which moveset is this? Which moveset have you chosen for these?
For Victini or for the 2-1 Sims?
For your Sims in general.
So I'm going Psycho Cut, Side Strike, Thunderbolt. And the reason I'm looking at now bear in mind that as this meta develops, Mewtwo is a jack of all trades kind of thing. Very similar to Mew in that regard, when I feel like Mew's moveset is going to change just tons before this meta ends.
Absolutely.
Mewtwo has a very similar role where what you can do is you compare it with things and it can be the perfect coverage mon. Now, I think that it's going to be all about gaining that shield advantage.
Perfect coverage is a stretch.
Okay, go on.
Just from the fact that it is so easy to farm down with.
No, you're absolutely right. Shields, but... You're absolutely right. But let's say something. I'm not saying it beats everything. It threatens everything.
Exactly.
So let's say I reach 55 energy, right? No matter what you have in this meta, you have to shield. You have to shield because let's say it's Altaria, Ice Beam, dead. Let's say it's Jellicent, Thunderbolt, dead. Let's say it's Genesect, Flamethrower, dead. I mean, Side Strike maybe, but you get my point.
Side Strike
it's one
might
of
be
those.
close, actually.
I'm not gonna. I mean, Fury cut it down. It's gonna happen. But what I want to do with this Pokemon is pair it with these really bulky Pokemon, like Greedent, like Snorlax, like Miltank, and then with Milotic, with Wobbuffet, which I think has a lot of potential in this meta as well. Use those as your extra shields. Generate the shield advantage on Mewtwo, and just sweep with it.
How
Yeah.
how do you think that's going to work out though? If you did 40 round of Naiad,
Horrifically.
Yeah, because it's all well and good sitting there going, I'm going to play it with shield advantage, but
You have to get the shield advantage first.
Exactly.
No, I absolutely have to get the shield advantage, but this is all an aspect of team building. So when I sit down to build my Naiad team, that's what I'm looking at. And in the same way that Jan is looking at it and building a team that works with Genesect and he learns it and he's going to go deep into it and go, okay, this is what I want to be doing with Genesect. That's what you have to do with this. You cannot pick this up and just play it. You can't throw it into any team. You have to build. You have to go, right, my first pick is Shadow Mewtwo, and every other pick complements this. It bodyguards it, it protects it, it scares off something I don't want to see. If you had a fire type Pokemon in it, you'd need to put it in to scare off the bug types kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the kind of consistency and the kind of detail that you have to put into building a team around this. But if it works, if you put that effort in and you build that team and you get used to it, I don't think anybody's going to know what to do with it. Because the other thing is that, so Shadow Mewtwo is squishy as all hell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of these Pokemon, if you get it locked in on them, it doesn't matter that you're super squishy because of the such low fast move pressure.
Yeah.
They're not doing enough damage that even then you come out of it with so much health that you're still able to reach a move on the next Pokemon. Whereas any other time, you'd almost get farmed down before. Yeah.
Even
Counter's not that great against it because it's resisted. Look at the damage that Escav's counter does to it. It's so low because bear in mind non-stab. Even Buzzwole doesn't really do that much. Now, admittedly, counter does 5%, but you come out of the in the 0 shields or the 0-1 shields or 1-0 shields. Basically, if you land a move onto the Escav, it's a Thunderbolt and it KOs because it does 84%, but you come out with 66 health out of 108. So they've taken 40 health off you, fine, but you come out with 2/3 health.
It's also probably the only Pokemon that can actually fast move something down with Psycho Cut. Because
absolutely.
Yeah, no. Obviously, when I first heard you say Shadow Mewtwo, I was like, whoa. I mean, I knew obviously it has that niche, but I was still, part of me was just like, oh, that's quite guttural. But yeah, with its standard moveset, the Thunderbolt Side Strike is phenomenal. And then you can just tailor it to what your team needs. So I think it definitely has a niche. Definitely worth trying once, maybe in like an unranked if you have to. I definitely think it's worth trying. So I think it's interesting.
Oh, the savagery! No, I will take this into a ranked tournament and I will win with it.
Well, I was saying to practice with it, as in to see whether you're like
one battle, perhaps.
No, I will win the tournament, Drew.
I saw a gleam of despair and
do you doubt me?
Would you like to elaborate on your despair? Yeah.
No, I just think it's just one of these things. It's just like it's not despair on behalf of like saying this is a bad idea. It's despair on the part of the poor like whoever's just like maybe just started Sylph. Alex comes in as like a trainer level.
It's just Alex standing opposite them, just going.
It's like all of a sudden gets locked in against a Mewtwo. It's like, oh, this isn't very bulky, and then bam, they just disappear into dust. Just like, this wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't supposed to happen, and it did. So
Thank you. I'm naming my Shadow Mewtwo Thanos. Thanks for that. I need it.
Can someone in the comments please screenshot that picture of Yan?
I need to turn that into an emoji.
I told you there would be emoji. It comes to us all. It comes to us all.
Any additional thoughts, Andrew? I think I saw you shake your head at the Thunderbolt. suggestion on moveset. So were you thinking?
But as Alex went on, I kind of realized that my opinion on it was actually wrong. So I
what
was
second move
actually
would you pair with Side Strike?
I was going to go Focus Blast originally.
No.
Get in there. You never get in there.
No.
I don't think you get to a Focus Blast. But what would you say instead now? What would you say instead now? I know it's obviously dependent on what
it's again it's very team dependent, but based on what I'm running as my intended 6, if I was facing my 6, I think I would probably put Ice Beam on it.
Makes sense. Yeah, because then you're only really worried about steals, and there's not too high of an amount of them. You've got the 2 psychic steals, you've got the bug steals, most of which will still take heavy damage from Side Strike. Obviously, not the
fun fact.
Well, I was going to say, to illustrate just how the strength of the Shadow Mewtwo Side Strike against a resisted Mon, like take the Mew matchup for example. A Side Strike, considering obviously Psychic versus Psychic is not very effective. A Side Strike from Shadow Mewtwo onto Mew still does 52%, which is outrageous.
So it turns out that Shadow Ball is actually the best performing moveset. In the ones, the problem that you've got is that it risks the catch, so you have to play around it. You have to be playing like you have to be. I feel like Thunderbolt, right. I've said that you can't just put this into a team. I feel like Side Strike Thunderbolt is here's where you are. I feel like you have to be up here to be playing Shadow Ball in my opinion. But just for a fun piece of information, how much do you reckon Shadow Ball from a Shadow Mewtwo does to a Mew?
I'm going to guess something like 140% or something mad.
Yeah, I'm going to raise you 151.
You're actually... Go on.
I was going to say 165, but...
You're actually too high. It's 120%, but it is still a one-hit KO. It is still a one-hit KO. And even against like a Hypno, you're still talking 89%, which is just...
Nice. That's good damage.
It is disgusting when you consider that the Psycho Cuts are also doing 1%. So by the time you reach, like, if you've done 10 Psycho Cuts and then throw the Shadow Ball, that's enough to KO. Like, it's just, bye, gone.
So, yeah, this is chatting shit. Some of our picks are going to be.
I did this.
It is good.
I did this with Rotom.
Yeah.
Matt doesn't like me. It's fine.
There's some spice in here. There's some.
I thought Rotom was good.
Take what you will from this, but are there any closing remarks on any of the picks we've discussed? Jan, is there any final comments you want to share with the people?
With the people.
Right.
We the people.
We the people. I'm just gonna say I'm back. I'm joking. No, I think it's I think the great thing is that some of the stuff that's come up has been very niche in many regards, but I will say all perfectly viable. Like, regardless of whether you how you view this meta, is like you can make any of these picks work in any number of ways. And I think that's what's really kind of brought me back for this particular one, is that I dreamt about 3 or 4 different teams with different strategies, and I think they're all very viable and all can all win as well. And I think they're ones that there's definitely there's ways to play it based on your ability as well, in terms of I obviously really highly skilled players will do very, very well, but I think it's not as I don't think it's one of those metas where you kind of concentrate all the skilled players into one particular area and then they will all perform. I think it's a meta where you can build in such a way that you can actually kind of bring that ability gap a bit shorter, because there are lots of different ways, and because the variety is just like obviously you have to prep in a lot of different ways. So I think it's actually in many ways a bit of a leveler. Which I really like from a meta, actually. I think it's not, particularly when we're early in the season, we're trying to bring more people in, with obviously with all the play Pokemon stuff going on and bringing more people to PvP. I think having metas where, good players are always going to do well, but I think metas which actually allow the opportunities for players who are perhaps not as well polished and things like that to just at least have an opportunity, I think it's really, really important, and I think really fun. And so that's what I really see here. I think there's lots of ways to go, and I think that will, I think you will see some upsets perhaps in big names losing, but I don't think that's bad. That's by no means a bad thing. So, I think those are my final thoughts really on Naiad, and I'm really interested to see how it develops over the month.
That's actually a really interesting take. I quite liked your explanation there. Drew?
Yeah, kind of similar to what Jan's just covered. However, based on my own kind of team build, obviously it has now gone live for the month. I like the fact that actually Jan mentioned, high skilled players might find, these niche mons and execute them very well. I feel that actually newer players and I guess established players will also have a lot of opportunity to run some old classics.
Yeah.
Hypno has, based on practice, is non-existent. Yet a lot of people thought it potentially be the return of Hypno. But yeah, I've kind of built a team around some of my favorite PvP mons, and yeah, there are many players out there that are better than me on raw ability. However, there is nothing better than playing with your favorite mons and closing that ability gap and that skill gap. And that's where I think where it comes to Jan's comment about there will be some surprising results.
Yeah. Alex, any closing remarks?
So I think it's looking to be a relatively balanced meta. Thankfully, it doesn't look like there's going to be one thing or two things or three things or a whole team of six that just repeats over and over and over and over again, which is always a sign of a good meta, in my opinion. It's a good sign that there is a lot of flexibility. And I think this is something that both Jan and Drew have alluded to, is the idea that, either we'll go back to old classics and playing with your favorite Pokemon, or you'll pick up these niche Pokemon. But the fact that there is these options is good. It's interesting. The fact that I'm genuinely considering a Shadow Mewtwo for a Great League tournament is, I love it. That's something that really does spark joy. And it's something that the metas that we've had recently haven't really given the opportunity to pick something just off the wall, completely silly, and have a bit of fun with it.
Yeah.
And potentially do well, because obviously the important thing is still to win.
I suppose then with my closing remarks, I would say I do believe Altaria will be quite high usage, just because it's appealing to new players who don't have many PvP Pokemon built. I know it was one of the first I built all the way back when, and it's still just as good today. I think something like Scizor, which it's had a bit of YouTube coverage. I think this was covered in the first episode as well. Just that it seems very safe. I personally think maybe definitely lower than Altaria, but will probably be on quite a lot of teams. But other than that, I don't think there's a whole lot you're going to see everywhere. And quite a lot of people prefer that. Some people don't. That's fine. I hope whoever's viewing this, you enjoy Naiad and our future metas. And obviously, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Chatting Shit. So thank you very much to Jan, Drew, and Alex for joining me today on this episode. Thank you to Brewer, who actually let me host this. And thank you to you all watching. So please comment below what you might like to use in Naiad. And I hope to see you all next time.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Hit that notification bell if you want to hear more about this year.
Remember that if you're on your mobile, you have to go into settings and turn on notifications for YouTube in order to get new videos.
Yes. In fact, let's just do a quick screen share. No, I'm joking. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining. I've had a lot of fun here, and hope the viewers have as well.